So y'all remember back several years ago, back when some of you maybe weren't even born in 2018, when Passimian was an S-rank Pokemon in Inu. It no longer is, even by current metrics of the Sun and Moon Inu tier. However, this mon used to run this show, and today we look at some replays from the Sun and Moon Premier League. This is, of course, a team tournament that features only Sun and Moon generation tiers, and of course, we love Inu here, so I'm gonna go over some wonderful Inu replays with y'all today. Of course, y'all enjoy tournament coverage, you enjoy daily competitive uploads where we aim to get y'all some extra knowledge. Make sure you go down and subscribe if you already are subscribed, leave a like. Join as a member where I give y'all extra videos when I remember to. Pretty good deal there. You know, a little extra support never hurts. Now, game one. We've got the most Sun and Moon team of all time. What do I mean by that? Well, my co-lead Eternally has used this team, or at least this 6 Pokemon, several times in tournaments, farmed people. I would say he has like an 80% win rate with this core. Now, he'll change up the sets every now and then, so I can't necessarily confirm any sets on this team. However, the most common variation is that this is Z, Outrage, Druddigon, Spikes, Ferroseed, just standard Xatu, Swords Dance, Incineroar, All Mine Comfy, and I think it's Hidden Power Fire on the original paste, and then Specs Heliolisk. Now, there are a couple things when you use this team you don't want to face. One of them is a Xatu, because naturally you have a Ferroseed. Ferroseed is completely shut down by Xatu. You have nothing you can do other than knock its item off and then switch. Another thing is Hidden Power Fire Comfy, because Incineroar is an okay enough answer to Comfy, but it's not the best. In certain situations, Incineroar will just fail to be a truly good Comfy answer. And so Ferroseed's what you fall back on, because you got Gyro Ball, and you'll beat Comfy down if it's not a shoot fire. Stories has loaded up a Xatu and a Comfy with an unknown hidden powers. Not exactly the best start. Could be worse, but not the greatest. And in general, too, I think Passimian's actually kind of okay into the team. Only because Xatu's not really that bulky. So oftentimes, you catch it with one knockoff. It's taking like 70 and being 2-shot afterwards. Whereas, okay, you also have Comfy, but Comfy you don't really want to get knocked, necessarily, if you can avoid it. And of course, you always run the risk of it being Gunk Shot Passimian and smoking your pack, which is never good. Now, into Stories' team, obviously, I just said a whole lot of things that are bad for LPZ. One thing he does have going for him, this is a pretty good Heliolisk angle, and even a pretty good Incineroar angle, because Stories' counterplay is a Passimian of hers, which, once its Scarf is knocked off, it no longer answers the Heliolisk, which is naturally just really good for LPZ. And it is her own Incineroar, which, depending on this instance set, could just be better. At that point, it just does come down to, alright, what variant of Instant do you have? Are you, like, Superpower or Earthquake, or are you Protect for some reason, or do you have, That's really all that would be relevant here. I mean, this team's offensive, so it's always SD and Sin. So let's see how it goes. So, knowing Stories, knowing she can't let the Heliolisk lead versus her, or otherwise it is just hard turn 1, does lead off with Passimian, and very usefully gets off a huge CC on this Druddigon. Since we see no helmet or lefties, we can already confirm pretty much this is still the Z user on LPZ's team. And double CC here is always fine because, I'd rather kill the Drud if my opponent overpredicts. I'm also pretty content to take a little bit of helmet if I have to, although again, we go back to the point at preview made. Incineroar is pretty scary to face, and so you don't want to take too much. You don't want to take too much. So now the Xatu pivots in after the Steelix, just trying to make sure you neutralize what this thing's throwing off as best you can, take as little damage as possible. And now the default comes out. Now I remember watching this and kind of being like, why is this default Xatu? I don't think it makes sense on the team, but that's mostly because I think on this kind of team where you only have Incineroar really that cares about hazards too much, I don't think it's overly necessary to have default. I think you're okay with just running your Magic Bounce and saying, alright, I'll just pray that I get Steelix as the opposing rocker. I do think you could argue T-Spike as a point, just to have the extra insurance, so not the worst pick. I just think that maybe it's a little overkill, but whatever. So Helios comes out, good U-turn here, of course, because now that means the small doesn't get to actually do a ton. In theory, you could still H-Voice, but it's not going to kill. And Ferroseed exists as a switch, and if they Flamethrower lock, they give up a lot of momentum. The Pharisee does dodge a Drake, but that was probably the best turn to have a miss happen if your stories, because it's a Pharisee. You get free Zatu, you get a free Roost. You're pretty good. So knock comes out from the instant. You know you can always live that. So another U-turn. A little crit there, never hurt. Just soften that up maybe a bit for Comfy later on. As we now see the pass come out. Very nice CC here. Essentially just saying, you know what? I think my opponent may try and stay in, predicting me to knock the Zatu. Because, hey, Zatu's a pretty fair switch in. I mean, it is the fight resist on the team. And if you get rid of Pharisee, remember all that talk about HP Fire Comfy being bad? Imagine now if it's HP Ground with the Pharisee having just died. Obviously, again, they CC predicting the instant to stay in, but getting Pharisee to come out there instead is so good. So now Zatu's having to come out here. You can switch out, go into your Incineroar. You don't really care about what the Zatu wants to do, as the Incineroar from LPZ is shown in response. And a little Protector off just to scout what this Incen's about. Maybe it had, you know, Z Superpower or Z Earthquake. Always good just to make sure that you suss that out. As LPZ tries to SD after stories, but it does not matter because a Malicious Moonsault popped. +1, by the way, killing is pretty wild. I don't know if that's a roll, but to me, just instinctively, I feel like it had to have been one, right? Regardless, Surf thrown out, protected on, so you go Drud just because you expect the Eggy Alola to come in. Funny enough, Eggy Alola could be faster if it's timid. You do sometimes see timid specs Eggy, but naturally it's clearly not on this team as stories switched out. Or she just feared Jolly on Drud, which would have also been faster no matter what. So, hard to glean too much here. But now, the Steelix will curse up, and we actually see it only get 3 curses and then one-shot Zatu, which I think means this has like a ton of attack investment, but I'd have to go into the calc and confirm that. I just feel like that, I don't know, +3 Okoing feels a little wrong. H-Rose comes out though, and of course having never shown Knock until now, Stories remembers, oh right, I can use that move. Basically saying, you know, go Comfy and I'll knock your life orb, and I'll feel pretty good about it. Comfy now comes out, and this is where we actually see the funniness of Comfy in this metagame. This Comfy, right here, with Steelix gone, can win the game. I don't care what you say, it can win right here. Because Incineroar has to Flare Blitz to even do damage. And so you can call mine up multiple times, the problems you get burned. Obviously, you see the damages took, right? This was in very easy range of +2 Draining Kiss, but this burn loses LPZ the game immediately. Because now Zatu can be thrown out as a sack, and since the Comfy took all those burn turns, it just dies here. So had Comfy not gotten burned, funny enough, with LPZ having so much go wrong for him this game, he would have probably won unless this Comfy like got a Draining Kiss crit or something. And there was no counterplay from there. +2 killed this. Passimian dies from 59, obviously. Eggy dies from full, obviously. And so it would have just come down to, okay, can this Comfy of Stories do something? So I think it does, I mean, it says a lot about Comfy in this tier, right? It's not that it's a broken Mon, but it is a Mon where it's like, I kind of think you could view it comparably to something like, say, a Cresselia or Deoxys Defense in current Inu. I have no coolness videos going up, by the way. There is a chance one or both of those Pokemon are gone. But bear with me here. It's kind of like those Mons where I don't think from preview you'll have too many games where you're just like, oh, I literally lose to this Mon. Because the prep to them is pretty natural, and we've got like good answers that at least you can rely on and say, all right, this should beat them, or at least help me manage them on enough to where I don't lose the second they set up. But if you lose your counterplay, oh my god, does that Mon look oppressive. And Comfy, as you can see in this game, the Steelix went down. Yeah, Comfy started a boosting and a boosting. Without that burn, it just would have won. But also, this was definitely a Passimian game. I mean, this is definitely like the apex of Passimian that you can get, where your opponent's resistances are kind of fragile. Here's the reason, right? Passimian's kind of fallen off nowadays for a couple reasons. We're gonna get a little bit of SM history now. Aerodactyl is in the tier. It dropped at some point, and the thing with Aero is it's so naturally fast that it can substitute for a Choice Scarf user in a lot of teams, because it is the fastest unboosted one in the tier. It's 394 with Jolly. That is huge, because it, one, means that you don't have to run Scarf on it to be fast, but two, you can run like other items and you don't lose your speed. So that's pretty big. Another thing though is this. Passimian oftentimes is tasked with being a team's Incineroar switch-in, or at least being a switch into Incineroar. You lose your item knockoff, you lose a lot of Passimian's functionality. Remember what I said at the start of this battle. One of the big things that Stories has to navigate is the issue of Ensign plus Lisk, where Ensign could always knock past his Scarf, and then that's not too good. Now, fortunately for her, she had Z Ensign on her team, so that wasn't really a line she had to worry about nearly as much, but in general, that is something that frequently happens, where you lose your Scarf on pass, and you lose so much of your, like, general purpose and kit. Because without Scarf, pass is no longer a good revenge killer. Arrow can lose its choice band and still be a revenge killer. Or it can be Z Crystal and just be a knockoff switch in. It can actually reliably switch in set. And then throw in the fact that T-Spike are viewed as, like, borderline OP in the metagame. And you've got Wheeze and Garbodor super common, I should say. You've got Miss Magius increasing usage over time. You've got a lot of mons that just run Protect that are otherwise weak to close combat, like Mega Abomasnow. And Passimian over time is just kind of fallen off, but this was definitely a really good showing where you run into some very fragile Pokemon that allow Passimian to still look like the god it used to be of this tier. And it's so funny to me to still think Pass at the very end of the gen almost rose to RU. It was literally like 0.1% away. And we were all freaking out about it because we're like, how are we supposed to play this tier without Passimian? Nowadays, it's kind of easy. A lot of people don't even bother using it. Anyhow, here's another game with a Passimian. Ampha using a team from Evigaro, and Evi, if you watch this, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say. I think this team is not good. Now, this is the beautiful part about Pokemon. I don't have to use the team. Evi uses it, and she has great success with it, so you know what? More power to her. She knows how to pilot it. But my worry with this team has always just been, I think there are a couple of very rough issues with it that make me very scared. One, no Volt Blocker. So Heliolisk runs this team down. I mean, it's literally faster than the entire team. Unless this is Scarf Garbodor, Heliolisk just beats you down. Rotom on this team beats you down. And there's some other, like, offensive mons that, or setup mons I just don't like the matchup into. Like, Comfey is devious for a team where the only check is a Garbodor and everything else that just dies to Draining Kiss. I mean, okay, Glalie doesn't die if it's like +1 Comfey, right? But hey, how many boosts you want to let Comfey? Hey, you want to let get the 2? You want to let Slowking try and Scald Burn? Fish for burns? Yeah, good luck. Comfey's scary though. Incineroar's scary. Whimsicott is scary. You got AV this plus Garb, so it's not like an impossible match. It's just like, it's a build that I look at and I go, damn, this is too flimsy for me. But Ampha brought it. Evi's used it, and, you know, again, good success, so I can't really hate too much. I'm just like, damn. Ain't a build that ain't a build you'll catch me using. I've got a very specific style. And again, hey, I mean, look at all the mons I talked about that I think are good into this team. Look at what Watashi brought. There's an Instant and there's a Rotom. So naturally from preview, I think both of these are very hard. Because the thing is, Rotom gets pretty good ins versus Garbodor. You have to play around Gunk Shot poisons, but when it's trying to set its spikes or T-spikes, Rotom's always coming out and it's threatening to do something, whether it's a Wisp Burn, whether it's just pivot, reposition. It's pretty easy to get good mileage out of. And in Incineroar is kind of the same thing, where I do feel like you've got some pretty clear opportunities to come in on Miss Magius and make it clearly. Missy, you have to play around potential Continental Crush, but otherwise it's, you know, potentially a switch-in chance. And there's not a ton stopping you from Swords Dancing up. And then just deciding, alright, opponent, you get to pick a Pokemon to sack to the god of the tier. So, as we start off with this game, Rotom is led with, because hey, you're facing a team that has nothing immune to Volt Switch, you may as well. Unfortunately, one of the two faster mons did lead, you have to switch. Thankfully, as we said, there is an Incineroar, so you get to immediately U-turn, and we see as well, this is Helmet. It doesn't mean it's not, like, fast Garbodor. Like, it can still definitely be offensive, which I think makes some decent amount of success, just so you're faster than Comfey. But instant use, and now again, we just see Rotom literally gets to freely Volt whenever it needs. Slowking of Watashi's comes out as we see AV King is very, very revealed after Volt damage and after the Future Sight. That combo just kind of lets you know. Now, Goro SD's up. You know it's Lumberry from how it was played. It switched hard into King, so it did not care about a Scald. And in SD up, you know that you're not caring about the Scald coming out here. Plus, do Goro very hard for this team to deal with, so Victor Bell ends up having to be sacrificed into the Knock. As Arafine now asking what this tournament is for because he's a very intelligent human being. Now Rotom once again, free Volt, and Incineroar gets to come out once again and just press knockoff. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Goro isn't really a switch-in because, like, what's gonna happen, bruh? You're gonna take this knock, you're gonna live at, like, 10, and you're gonna die to Flare Blitz. Congrats. As we see here once again. This is a pretty good switch into Garbodor. So, the Spike and T-Spike now are just gone. And once again, we get to play the game of, how do I want to switch into this easy Monda check? So looking at what Tashi's once again picked, he just tried to calm mind up here. This is Dragon Tail, so that's never working. As the Passimian's dragged out. It is not really a good Passimian game. But hey, I mean, you knocked this thing's helmet off. So you can, And this is just a terrible pass angle because you've got good resist, good enough resist to at least CC, and an immunity, and you don't want to let this plot up. At this point, it can be bad. Now, the former RUTL comes out. Unfortunately, it's a male, so that doesn't really work for Heavy Garo. But it works for Fiend if you want to say right here, the F stands for Fiend, so. Okay, enough. We do see Power Gem Mismagius is revealed here, so Continental Crush, yay. And I just have to expect it. As we now see the Steelix into being Protox. This Druddigon's gonna get stalled out a bit, and once again, this is something that could be an instant answer here. You're always really happy to get your chip on this. And, for all the things I said, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a 6v5 in favor of Ampha. But, you look at his team, like, everything's dying, and then you got, oh my god, crit devastating Drake there is quite devastating. The problem is, Watashi's about to not lose a single Pokemon for the rest of this game. Pass comes out, and as you see, the lower Garbodor gets, the worse this game gets for Ampha, because the move knockoff is becoming increasingly free. There's not really any answers to it. I mean, you can literally bring Pass right back out. You know, you can go Goro, you can go King, it doesn't really matter. You get a U-turn. So, he's chilling. His Rotom now is going to be the answer to the King. It's good enough Skull Switching for what you've got left, and I believe I've seen him use this team before. I think it is Iapapa Berry. So he's got the Burst Heal available if he, takes Rocks one more time. Pass again, though. And here, you're basically just hoping that Watashi chokes and goes for, like, CC, gives Mismagius free setup. But he's a little bit better than that, so he doesn't do it. As Mismagius now has to come out here, trying to get as much chip as he can. Onto the Steelix. Unfortunately, Steelix is a big, strong man. So Heavy Slam does plenty of chip after eating up that Shadow Ball. Mismagius dies to burn, and now Mega Glalie will set up the most useful spike of all time. As another Heavy Slam comes out, crit there. Very funny that Mega Glalie is so heavy, by the way, like 51. The hell's that? But the 2-shot on the Mega Glalie comes out. So even in this game, by the way, Pass was still, like, plenty useful because the Garb got knocked. And from there, it's just easy U-turns. Like, you can't stop it. Mismagius can't really exploit the CC lock because you have no real incentive to CC lock. Slowking's AV, so he actually pressured a lot better than normal. And Mismagius is more a mon that's lurking, waiting to catch the CC, but it's never coming. So excellent Passimian showcase. Now, I found this matchup pretty funny because this is basically Eternally playing himself. These are both Eternally teams. He used both of these builds in recent team tournaments, which I found very funny. So, in theory, if they're not changed at all, it's Spec Sigilif here. It's Z Arrow with Continental Crush. It's Double Choice Band here. One thing to note about this team, there was no Z Crystal user. And when I took this team from a turn, I also thought that was weird. So I changed up one set. I made Arrow Z. T Nunez felt the same. He did something far more sinister than I did. So, as we look at preview, I do really like the Pangoro from T Nunez versus this team. It's not that it just runs the team down, but it is quite strong. If you're able to get it in versus, like, Delmise maybe on, like, a spin, for example. Or even just get in versus Steelix, right? Because you can always be Scrappy. Since you're Banded, Scrappy's pretty okay. Because you just get rough superpowers and you don't care. The switch-ins aren't great. Sigilif is a quad resist, but come on, man. Sigilif switching into Pangoro, come on. Get real. Get real, buddy. So, there's decent room for Goro to sweep. And we must always note Comfy. How does it do into here? Well, not the greatest, because Delmise is pretty bulky. And Anchor Shot Delm just checks Comfy. You've also got the Steelix, so there's two good checks. How about this Comfy to this team? Not bad. HP Fire Comfy kind of pops this team in the mouth. So let's see who's got the better necklace of flowers. Arrow led with here, Quill led over here. This is a very free Earthquake, and immediately you do get confirmation this is still a Banded Arrow, just from the damage done to the Steelix here. And you can always switch out very safely into your Blastoise. Now this is where the sinisterness is revealed. I don't know what the hell T. Nunez was smoking before this game. This thing pulls out the Sub-Zero Slammer. Hi-ya. Which is funny, because I've used it before. It's very funny. But I did it with Ice Beam. It's been into a Blizzard. And he gets a freeze immediately. And he doesn't ever miss. Hey, dude, what are you doing? How are you hacking so hard? So the dome takes 49. Now, a guy like me stayed in, and I got the 51 roll. But not everyone can be as talented as I am. I understand that. So no judgment. Anyhow, Sigilyph always can come in on a Sludge Bomb. Same interaction we used to see it with Vileplume in previous metas. And then on Pangoro, yeah, just sack to the Tinted Sigil. Not really a whole lot else you could have done. But wait, there's more. Order now, and you can also get a ton of chip onto your Aerodactyl. That's 70. Now, you did end up successfully pursuit trapping. That's really what matters the most there, but Jesus Christ. Sigilyph taking down both the big breakers. And here, we do see a little Draining Kiss chip come out there. Nice little smooch on the cheek. Not revealing yet what set this Comfy has in terms of the hidden power, but just you wait. It will. It will scare you. So Steelix comes out versus the opposing Steelix, and then we just see Arrow thrown at us a sack because you want to make sure you can get a free switch into Stoise. Gives you a nice Scald. With Delm so low, there's nothing that switches in. You could argue Quill could try to come in, but it's like, it's just not a very good play. So Delm does come out, gets burned immediately. It's just a very safe 2-shot Scald anyways, which doesn't really matter. His Comfy now comes out, knowing it could set up, but instead, it just opts for some chip immediately, which is also very, very fair as the spin comes out, because you potentially are trying to catch the link, right? You just want to get like a little bit of extra damage. It's reasonable. Now the victory comes out, and we do finally get the reveal, HP Fire. So it was always the demon set for this team to deal with. As what's funny here is if you really wanted, you probably could have taken chip if you were trying to set up for Arrow to sweep. But the discipline play there is, of course, just sack Quill. It's not doing anything. And now you get your Steelix out. And EQ is just free. Stoise is so low. I mean, it doesn't die, but it's basically dead. And Comfy's always a safe enough pivot. You don't want to get burned, of course, which happens right there. I mean, generally speaking, it's a safe enough pivot. Incredible hidden power there to make up for a little bit of the unluckiness here. Steelix can come out now. And if I'm honest here, this is kind of rough because you want to keep your Steelix at a good amount of health for the Arrow. But with the rocks going up now, you can't even bring out Stoise. So technically the right play ended up being pivot Stoise in as rocks were set. But it's tough to make that play because if Aldane, I think they're formed with Larry. If Larry were to have gone for Q, just trying to trade chip and weaken the licks, well, then you've sacked your Stoise for nothing, and this is at full. And that's not really any good either, because you gotta get chip on this for your Comfy to try to do something. So it's a very, it's a bit of a tricky sequence to navigate. I think it was played okayly enough, but it's not exactly clear which route was like quote unquote correct, right? So now Arrow comes out, and of course Arrow can one-shot everything left if it has the right move. So we see Q here. Comfy now come out. Now very good play by Aldane, very disciplined. Knowing that the Scout of the Z is very possible, they just roost up here. Get all the way back to full, give yourself the best odds you need. You will not die to anything this Comfy's got. And this Continental Crush, oh boy. And the Comfy dies. So Aerodactyl showcasing why it is taken over as the fast mon of the tier. Now, this last game, I don't like these teams, but that's more because they have mini mons that just irk me aesthetically. Like, bro, what? Why? This mon is ugly. Get this out of my sight. Get this stupid goof off my screen. Now, the main issue I have with Maru's build, if there is something more constructive to say, it's kind of just Miss Mage's food. There's no Ghost Resist, there's no Pursuit Trap. There's a Scarf Metacham, which at the very least will revenge kill. However, I'm just not really a fan of angles taken like this, where one of the more common mons of the tier, you just see a really, really, really positive matchup too. I think you could get a little bit more solid, but there's no Miss Magus, so who gives a shit, right? Meanwhile, Charm Flash here. It's kind of hard to say it seems like weak into anything in particular from Meru. I could see a world where Metacham, though, is pretty scary, because at the end of the day, I mean, one, it's just a very strong breaker, if you're thinking that, like, it was Life Orb Medi for preview. And so Xatu as your check is always going to be a little rough. Now, the interesting thing to keep in mind here is the Togedemaru plus Pass, because both most commonly run a Scarf. If they're both on the same team, they're not going to be Scarfed, so one of these has a different set. Naturally, it's more likely to be the Tog, but you still got to keep in mind, Pass has some bulk up sets that it runs, and it can sometimes be Banded. So you at least have to respect those threats. As the Schnoz is led with versus Pass, you do get the U-turn here for free always. We do see it's a Poison Valley revealed as well. I thought maybe it could have been like a regular Silvally, just so you at least have a immunity to Ghost. But I think running Poison makes more sense when it, you know, consider a little bit more. You don't want to get beat down terribly by T-Spike, so it is what it is. Toad comes out here after a Glare and a Poison Fang onto the Druid. Toad able to very easily knock the Xatu here, and Scald for decent enough chip. Now, the interesting thing is here, if this is like offensive Toad, Scald would always do like a lot more. So you kind of have insight now. This is a bulky Toad. With no item revealed so far, it's kind of being likely you are running into Zero Fresh, so you can always take into account for the rest of the game. Dome now gets doubled in onto the Xatu, as Toxic's thrown off. Pretty worthless because Lumberry just kicks in, but very nice that Charm Flash didn't roost immediately on that whip that predicted the roost. So now you see you could technically try to roost a little bit more. It depends on how much whip's doing. Like, is this 26 a high roll or a lower roll or just a normal roll? Instead, he decides to U-turn out. He got a little bit of health left on this mon. His Instin's able to come out. Now here, a little bit weird of a Sword Dance. I thought Toad was always pretty safe to come out. And then Protect is revealed, just try to stall out a little bit more toxic damage. As the Toad then goes for Zero Fresh, but then the rocks are set as Inferno Overdrive. Like, lots to take in here. Then this lifts Scald at 1%. A very funny interaction. Now the issue, of course, for Meru, not Meru, for Charm. Since the Ensign got taken so low, though, Fox now is a huge threat, and he doesn't respect the possibility of non-Scarf Fox. So Toad gets smacked across the face by a flamethrower, and now the future sight's set. So, you know, it ends up being revealed it's Psychium Z. Or not Psychium Z, but it is, just this set. I said Psychium Z even though I just saw this Zero Fresh, by the way, because normally Future Sight Fox has the Z Crystal. It doesn't really matter. Future Sight's currently ticking, though. This has, unfortunate EVing, maybe? Shouldn't it be at 51 if it's not, bad Rocknum? Regardless. Pass comes out now. This ends up not being Protect, which is also a little odd. Wonder what the last move was, but Gunk's able to pick that off. As Druid has to come out versus Probo, and there is still, like, some room for Meru, or not Meru, for Charm to maybe do something, but it comes down to a speed tie, essentially, versus Metacham. So if you don't get that, then you're just toast. And the problem is Meru doesn't ever have to let you get that speed tie. Because here's the Delm. You could just knock the Scarf immediately if you want. And then you should always just be good to win with Medi. So, you knock the Pass Scarf. He needed to, like, crit with Gunk twice or something before there was ever a chance of the knock even coming through. Which, you know, pretty unlikely. As now you see Metacham comes out at the end. And when it hits this Psycho Cut and there's no Life Orb recoil, you're pretty safe to assume it's Scarf. The Sceptile falls. The Togedemaru falls. Unfortunately, in this last game, Passimian was not able to show its stuff, but I don't think we should forget what it did this first battle. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll always reiterate for y'all, this is like my second favorite gen of NU. It's Gen 3, then Gen 7. The rest are kind of like, I don't really care. But I always love covering these tournaments. Let me know if y'all want to see more of this down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.